I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:37. And if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tori, would you mind leading us in a few moments of
Absolutely.
mindfulness to start?
So we're going to take a couple minutes to arrive here. So everybody can take a deep breath in and breathe out. And you can either close your eyes or find a spot to stare at. Take a deep breath, focusing breath in and out. And one more time, big deep breath in and out. And just follow the rhythm of your breathing as you find yourself sitting here in this chair, in this space, feet planted on the earth and breath moving through your lungs. This is the time we take to remind ourselves of why we've gathered around this table, to put the kids in our community at the center of our governance, and to settle into the here and now. So take a deep breath in and out. And on our next exhale, we can begin to govern.
Thank you, Tori. So as noted in the agenda, we need to start with some reorganization of the board, and I would invite community member and former mayor Mike O'Brien to please come forward and help a new returning board member, Jen Corrigan, with oath of the office. Yeah, right here? Sure. Okay.
Hello, Jen.
Hi.
You raise your right hand.
I
Repeat
practiced
after
this
me.
last night.
Did you?
Yeah,
So
to make sure I knew my right hand
So
and my left.
It's the opposite one from mine. Okay, repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Jen Corrigan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office, duty, and the trust of school trustee,
the office, duty, trustee,
duty, and the trust
and the trust
of school trustee
of school trustee
for the Winooski School District,
for the Winooski School District,
and that I will therein
and I will therein
do equal right and justice
do equal right and justice
to all people
to all people
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and ability
and ability
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I also solemnly swear
I also solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the State of Vermont
of the state of Vermont
and of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
That's it.
Awesome.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yay!
Welcome back. Mike, thank you very much.
Sign this, or you want to do it later?
Yeah, we'll do it later when we get the name modified there.
Okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
you're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Great to see you.
Congratulations, Jen.
Yay,
Thanks.
Jen. 3 more years.
Yeah.
3 more years.
Stick around, but.
Aw. It's always good to have you visit.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
night.
greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mike.
Now I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the position of board president or board chair.
I nominate Michael DeCaro to continue his fabulous run.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to elect Mike DeCaro as board president.
So moved.
All in,
So who first, Jen?
Jen. Try again.
Still operating under small boards and Robert's rules. We don't need a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Yay! Thank you.
And now you can have it back.
Onward ho for
Onward.
another good year of forward
Yeah.
progress.
Yep.
All right. So we had also had the election of, here it's listed as secretary, but it's clerk. Last year, I believe, Jen, you had that one, right? So I would accept nominations for the position of clerk.
I nominate Jen Corrigan
Yep.
to continue doing a beautiful job being clerk.
Thanks, Sean. Sure you don't want it?
Oh,
Do I
no.
have any other nominations? All right. Yeah, I would accept a motion to reelect Jen for the clerk or secretary position.
Yep.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great. Thanks and
Yay!
for volunteering again. We do have,
Me and Tori's volunteering again. Right, Cory.
I got you.
I'll get you.
whoops.
It's really not a hard thing to do.
Okay, so now we got a couple of items that we need to work through here, and that's just code of conduct. And I think this has been one that we've talked about a couple of times as we've gone through the past year, as far as our conduct on the board. Any discussion on things that we've had there? Wanted to update anything that is odd or want to change?
No, it still seems to fit
Okay.
and be great guiding principles, yes.
All right, and we seem to have followed it pretty well, so.
Mhm.
I would like to, I would accept a motion to adopt, again, the board members' code of conduct, policy 4.7, to reaffirm our following that process.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Very good. And then, whoops. So as we go down, I did the oath, did the election.
Robert's rules.
Yep. So after that, then we, committees first. So from a committee standpoint, we are extremely lean on committees, as I think the overall governance model we're using would articulate. Helping on committees we're asked to help on, but not driving them to drive actions within the system. So we have, what did we have? We had the
Negotiations.
communications
Mhm.
group. I believe that was previously Julian and I
Mhm.
for that one. And we had reaffirmed that at our August meeting. Anybody want to partake in that one?
You two are doing a wonderful job.
Okay.
Absolutely fantastic.
All right, so we can do Mike and Julian on that one again. Parent engagement, I think that was
Was
yourself
Muhammad and I.
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Okay, is that something we're good with? Change, are you okay continuing?
Yep.
Yeah?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, it's, yeah, I think, I think in this case, we're certainly working through how to better adapt and adopt our,
Or to be clear and have a documented charge about what that is. And I think that, as we discussed in our last retreat, we actually will do some of that here in terms of engagement, you know, and start really sort of putting some shape around what does it mean
yeah,
and what we're looking for and what do we want the outcomes to be.
yeah.
Timeline, resources, all of that.
This year with we're working toward, we haven't closed anything yet, but working toward a 1-year negotiation. We're not quite finished with the one we've got, but we will have another session next year. So anybody want to Jen, do you want to
I'll
work
continue
through that
doing
one
it.
again and continue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
Anybody
So
else?
it's you two.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I reran. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And, I mean, is that something at all? Okay.
Nope.
Mohammed, at all?
That's not
No?
me.
Okay.
You look
All
at
right.
me.
So Jen and myself then?
Yes.
Again? Okay. And in the interest of having him not here, we won't push.
Give him a job.
We won't push
He has a great
Julian
name for
into
that.
that
I keep
one. We got him
forgetting
into
the
the
communications.
communications one, so.
He
Yeah.
should do the parent engagement.
What's the term he uses when you're not here and you get a job?
I don't know, I got tagged
I'm
tagged
pretty
with
sure
it.
There's a
I've
really
already
great,
just
there's a
dealt
great
with
phrase
that,
for it.
and
I gotta like write that one down because I like it. Yeah, but we will refrain.
It's of being absent.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we'll go then with Julian and myself with communications,
Okay.
Mohammed and Tori with parent engagement,
Mhm.
and Jen and myself with negotiations.
Remember the days when
There-
there was tons of things.
Yeah,
That's great.
there
It's
may,
getting
there may be other
positive.
items that come up as we go through the year, and we'll take them up as we get to them. I don't want to make things up or force issues where they don't really necessarily need to be
Well said.
at this point. The other item here was the Roberts rules. We have been going with Roberts rules for small boards, and I think the one main item with that has been, the single motion, not necessarily needing a second. And so that's, I think that has worked well. I don't know that there's anything but, coming out of the department or redundancy department by having the second, so we might as well use it, if you guys are good with that.
Yep.
It is.
All right, and then, so then other just quick operational items here. Regular meeting sessions, we've been meeting on a second Wednesday at 6:30. That still work?
Yeah.
Yes.
No issues, no real reason to change that, okay?
No.
In here it says schedule the annual board work session or the retreat, but I want to hold that one off until our May discussion.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be in the July or August timeframe, either supplanting the August meeting or putting one into July. So we'll talk about that in May, depending on where we are in the annual agenda.
That sounds great.
Designate places to post meeting agendas. I don't think that's going to change any. There's no reason to make any adjustments there. We did the code of conducts, we did Robert's rules. Communications practices are just those items that when things come up, how do you funnel the communications around through the system? And
You
And-
got that down pat.
yeah, I think part of it
Yeah,
is
You're
just
the chief spokesperson. for
ensuring
us.
that the
Right.
communication all comes back through, at least to Sean and or myself. And if it's something that we've decided on as a board, then that is the board's solution. That's fine to communicate if you're comfortable. If it's your own opinion, it has to be stated that way, or you can push it. I don't mind. It's been pretty quiet, so it's good. Newspapers for publishing meetings. I wouldn't know why
It's the
we would
same
do
as
that, so
postings, yeah.
we're good there. Robert's rules for small boards, no issues. Public comment, we went through that policy pretty deeply last year, the public comment policy, and if you've got a lot of people, setting time limits, recognizing those who will and will not, and if we get into a situation where we'll need that, we'll pull it out and work with it. Other than that, I think, the only other piece was board development, and I know is it next month we got the financial
Yep.
training?
Yep.
I've got to there was one other training, did we push the other one to May? I thought there was two pieces of that, there was a financial one.
Well, we did the
Maybe that's the
policy
other one.
governance with Val.
Oh, right, already,
Yeah.
behind us. So one of the things I'll ask you, I gotta put the annual agenda together for the June meeting. From a training perspective for next year, if you guys can think about, we're gonna do the financial training again. If you can think about what kinds of things would be pertinent to, from a training perspective that we can have somebody come in and do. Just jot it down or send it off to me quick, and we'll try to find a way to incorporate at least the header, figure out who can do it later, but.
Okay.
So just kind of keep that in mind, because I would like to see it be something, real forward-looking rather than, the financial is good, you got to understand that in the base,
Mhm.
but maybe something, where's education
I
going to
think we
be?
need to, that and focusing on getting out into the community more as a group.
Right. One thing we discussed a couple board meetings ago was educational funding. Is getting ourselves up to speed on how education's funded, because if we're looking forward, is looking for new and innovative ways of
Okay.
funding education. So that was something that we talked about a couple months ago, that we would like, in terms of being an advocate for our owners and taxpayers,
Okay,
to sort of get
that's-
up to speed with where we are in just general education funding.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a good point, because we went through that in the budget,
Yeah.
is what are we,
And realize, like,
What are we
what are
dealing
we
with?
looking toward? Like, what's going on in legislation, and what's happening out there in the world of really thinking creatively and innovatively about how education's funded in
Okay.
general. And I think with the community piece, getting out, that was something we also discussed about, using some of the policy governance workbooks at a meeting to talk about community engagement and our role in getting out, and how that makes sense and how that's relevant, and
what can we do?
what do we do?
How
Right.
can we get
What have
there?
we done, what have we done really well, and how do we continue to grow in being able to reach out and communicate?
Especially when around times of change.
Yeah. And helping change the narrative of the change in education. What we're promoting every time we talk about the graduation expectations, and proficiency-based education and project-based education, and what does that mean for those of us that did not go to school with these new initiatives in play? How do we communicate what's going on and why it's important and how it's meeting our ends?
Okay, we can find somebody to try to help us understand the education funding piece. And then, all right, good.
No notes needed.
I think we've touched it all. Good.
Okay?
So, good, thank you. Any adjustments and agenda review items? I do have one if we can. Section 8 under executive limitations, I'd like to add an approval for a long-term sub and move Section 8 right up under the consent agenda so that we can talk about the vendor approval
Oh,
down
okay.
there while Rebecca's here and we
Yeah,
can get
that
her
makes
out of
sense.
here
That's great.
on a 13-hour day.
That's
And
it.
then
We'll do it again tomorrow.
can take up the governance process after that.
Sure.
Any other agenda review items or adjustments? All right. We will then move into the focus on learning, food security.
All right, so I'm going to kick us off tonight on the topic of food security, and I think it's really important that we understand why we have such a focus on food security. And I have a slide here that I want to show you when it warms back up. But many of you may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a pyramid, and there's foundational, basic, or physiological needs at the very bottom. And the theory is that unless young people have these basic needs at the foundation met, they can't get to those higher levels of different needs, which really culminate in what's termed self-actualization, which is, you know, things like critical thinking and spirituality and so forth. So there we go. So I think that you've heard in a number of different ways in our wellness updates and through the superintendent report to the board of the different things that we've been doing, and this is something that we've put a lot of energy into and believe that it will really pay off because many of our students, many of our families struggle with food security issues, and we want to make sure that they know how to access resources, and then we can also fill the needs where we have the control and the influence to fill those needs. And one of the ways that you're going to hear about is through the community eligibility provision, where we're able to provide meals for free for our students. So I just wanted to start by saying, you know, this is really important in the development of our children, because if they're not eating well or they're not eating regularly, they're not going to be able to learn. And they're not going to be able to progress up the pyramid to these loftier ideals that we want them all to be able to access now and for their future. So now I'm going to invite Rebecca Goulet, who is our finance manager. But probably a better title for her would be Director of Operations, because she, in this respect tonight, is our food service liaison, also works with maintenance. So she works very closely with the Abbey, who is our food service provider, and she's going to take it from here and let you know what's happening with food security in Winooski School District.
Thank you,
I'm
Sean.
not sure if it's working. We'll see. Oh, it is working now.
Yay.
There you go.
So the community eligibility program was talked about all through the beginning of the school year, 13-14, and had people a little nervous because nobody had really done it. We weren't really sure what we were getting into. And our district received a lot of pressure from other organizations to really look into it because we had the numbers to make it work. So reluctantly, I had to be pushed a little bit because it was a scary endeavor to do. And why we were able to do the community eligibility project was you have to have at least 40% of your students directly certified. And what directly certified means is these families either have some type of assistance, or they have the SNAP program, or they're already eligible through the state for certain programs. If you have at least 40%, you can apply to do the program. In order to be successful in the program and not have to ask the community to contribute to that bottom line, you really need to be closer to 60%. Once you hit that 60% mark, you're reimbursed 100%. So it's kind of a no-brainer situation for us. So our direct cert rate runs between 64 and 68. It changes every month because we're a moving target. We get a report every month. We have to do that data once a year in April and report it to the state to make sure that we are still eligible. And then, so you see the 67%, and I know you hear the number a lot, our free and reduced numbers are like in the mid-80s. So how we make up the balance of the free and reduced would be families that would qualify because of income or other situations in their home. So there's two different factors going on. One of the things with the CEP, as we refer to, is that we don't have to collect quite as much data from families any longer. We still have to get some forms back because we have to have the free and reduced numbers for the census so that we can get federal funding, which helps us in the weight of our students for the equalized ADM. So in May of 2014, we went back out to bid because that was one of the requirements, and we had 2 bidders. And the board, I met with the board, and we went with the Abbey Group. And it's been really successful. One of the things that we found is that we're not spending a lot of time doing anymore is chasing around overdue accounts. And kids eat. We don't have to worry if they have money on their account or anything. Everyone just eats. It makes the lines go faster because we don't have to stop and take cash. So it's been really successful. And the one thing that's great about it too is the way our contract is with the Abbey. Is that we have a break-even situation. So they have to produce enough revenue through this program to meet their costs. So for the taxpayers in the community, it doesn't cost them anything additional. So this is a little hard to read, but I just wanted to give you a little data to see how things have come over the years. Just going back to 2013, I looked at February. We averaged about 524 meals a day. And you can see where we were doing free meals about 6,800 for the month, reduced price meals, which meant people they paid about 60% of the meal, and then 800 people a month were paying full price. So the percentage of our free meals for the month, for the first February of the 13 and 14, we're right around 87%, which is right where you would expect it to be. So then you move down when we start this program, and you can see where there's no reduced price and there's no full meal price lunches any longer, and our numbers start to go up. And so we're now feeding on the average of 548 students a day lunch. And that is the hot lunch line, and for the older students, they have additional choices like pizza and the international bar and this deli bar. So we're creeping up on those numbers, and we're finding that we're having a lot less kids go without lunch. Breakfast was also included as part of this program. It used to be called Universal Breakfast. And what's really been amazing for us to see in the last even 2 months is our numbers have doubled almost, because we're feeding the JFK kids in the classroom. Before this January, we were having the younger students come in the cafeteria before school started and have breakfast if they so desired. And we were finding that a lot of kids weren't doing it. Our numbers were down. And then kids would get hungry. There were more visits to the nurse's office. There were more behavior issues. So we, along with J.C. Putlitz and Sarah Robb, we worked with Hunger Free Vermont to be part of Breakfast After the Bell. So every morning now, the Abbey group delivers a milk carton kind of production on a cart down to every classroom so that every student is offered breakfast. And they do get to order breakfast, so we have a set menu, but they also have an alternative of a yogurt parfait and cheese stick if they don't want to have the cereal or the muffin that day. They also have a share basket, so there's food in the classroom all morning. And I think, talking with Sarah, we definitely have seen the numbers of visits and behavior problems starting to dissipate a bit, which is really nice.
Need to have that data backing it up.
This for me is extraordinary.
Yes.
That, that this is happening, and what a shift we've seen. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
No more hangry kids?
Well,
I mean, in the morning, after they eat breakfast.
did you say angry or hungry?
Angry.
Angry, yeah.
Hungry, angry.
Yeah.
I think it's been very successful in
You're hungry, it
JFK.
makes you angry.
And hopefully, parents like it too. I think it's helping.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been really good. One of the other programs that comes under this umbrella is snack and supper program. So it was about the same time we did a small pilot at the end of 2014. They came to us and said, you have all these great after-school programs. You can work through the daycare subsidies and offer supper for people that are in these programs. So we did a small pilot, and it seemed to work pretty good. It was, another component we kind of had to work into our day and get everyone on staff here. But as you can see, those numbers are continuing to rise too. So we are serving more snacks as well and suppers. The programs are more robust, and we have more kids being in them. One of the things that we saw a huge number in February jump is that we're now working with the athletic department. So students that are participating in sports can be given a bag supper as well, which has been really helpful when they're on the bus traveling and they don't get back till late. So at least they have something. And the coaches were really appreciative of that, so we'll be continuing that.
Rebecca, can you just talk a little bit about what's the difference between snack and supper?
Sure. So the snack is generally like a milk and maybe a piece of fruit, or a milk and a cheese stick and some crackers. Whereas the supper program is a little more comprehensive. It's not a hot meal, but they do, they always have a vegetarian option, like a sun butter sandwich with fruit and cheese and milk. And then we also, some days we serve turkey sandwiches. So it's more like, it's more what you'd expect as a bag lunch type of supper. So there's usually 4 components. And they're only required to eat 1 component here at school, and then they can take the rest of it home and eat it at home later in the evening.
Great.
So we do have, some that are obviously favorites, and we try to rotate them in as much as we can. So the summer food program has always run in Winooski. it was always run by the city, which was kind of interesting. They used our facility, but they managed it. It was one of those things that was just a long-standing tradition for whatever reason. And as we started collaborating more with the city and working with Ethan and Ray Coffey, we really couldn't figure out why the school wasn't doing it, because it just made more sense for us. So I don't have a lot of data on that particular program going back, because I don't have their records. So last year we applied and were allowed to run the summer program, and that was offering breakfast and lunch. We're an open site program, which means any child under the age of 18 and under could come here for breakfast or lunch during those hours. They didn't have to be a Winooski resident. They didn't have to be in a program. They simply could just stop in and have lunch or breakfast. The other unique thing about this particular program is that the laws did change some so that we were able to offer seconds to some of these kids. And that became pretty popular because they were able to get a second lunch or a second breakfast during the summer program.
Great.
So we will be applying to do that again this year, and we're looking to extend it maybe an extra week, depending on what the facility schedule needs for some of our needs over the summer. But we'll partner with the Abbey again for that.
The other thing I wanted to mention about this is this year, while we're doing our summer planning for programming for students, we're able to connect the food program to the activity programming. So when we're talking about doing a soccer camp for a week, we loop in the timing with the breakfast and the lunch so that students can access both of those on either end of the soccer program or the hoop camp, so that we can get as many kids meals as possible.
In working with the Abbey, they've been really flexible about a lot of the things. Like some of the programs want the kids to end and have like a bag lunch, like if they're out on the soccer field, instead of having to come in. When we were at JFK doing the summer school, we still want to have in-classroom breakfast. So we'll be offering that, and we'll be an open site in the cafeteria so that we can try to meet as many needs as possible to get as much food out into the community. And then the city will continue to run a smaller program they do down at the O'Brien Center. And they sometimes are bringing food over to Landry Park, depending on the pool situation. And one of the other big components that we have here at school is called the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, and we started participating back in 2009, 2010. And this program is geared towards elementary age children. And the goal of this is really to be in schools that have a higher poverty level and a need for food, to introduce children to different fruits and vegetables that they may not get the opportunity to have in their homes. So every year we have to write a grant, and we get allocated a certain amount of money. We used to do a lot of this in-house, but now the Abbey does a lot of the work for us, and we're able to get a little more bang for our buck because of our buying power. So every day, that staff has a fruit or vegetable that they prepare for the classrooms, and they're either put like in a bowl or a Tupperware bag, and the teacher in the classroom can decide in their schedule when they want the children to have this type of snack. So they really use it during snack time, and they're also getting to try new vegetables. Obviously some are more popular than others, and we try to do the berries and things like that when we can. I've seen them do pomegranate seeds before, and they've done things, different colored carrots. So I think it's been a really successful program, and I think it offers another way to get our kids an additional snack during the day who may not have brought something from home. And so we do have a couple programs with the food bank, which J.C. Putlitz, the wellness coordinator, oversees. And those two are the backpack program, which means every week about 80 students in JFK get a bundle of food put in their backpack in the locker. And that usually contains things like soup, sometimes like soy milk, just non-perishable, so they have things available. And they're things that children can just take and make themselves or do themselves. They don't need an adult to help them. But that gives them a little food security over the weekend. And then 2 Fridays a month, we have the food pantry come, and that's all usually vegetables and fruits. And then we set up either outside if it's nice or inside, and students and families in the community can come and take a share. And it's been really successful as well. So moving forward, there's always going to be more work to do, and we're kind of divvying up some of that work. JC and Sean are doing a lot with their wellness, and I'm trying to do some on the other end with the Abbey. We want to, keep getting the children involved with the nutrition. Hopefully get a student council advisory committee. We work closely with the Hunger Council, Hunger Free Vermont. Honor Horton has been helpful with some information and literature getting out. We would like to work more closely with local food banks so that we can make sure we're meeting the needs of our community members. We would like to have started that this year, but we've been so focused on the recycling and the composting that we've had to kind of focus on that. Collaboration with grocery stores. I know Sean's been working with that with the community and trying to get some activity there. And we really want to increase the supper program and really put that out to more of the sports programs and the after-school programs and the older kids. So we're working with coaches to do that. It's a little extra work for the coaches, but I think they saw the benefit over the winter programs, that it was really helpful. So we're going to continue to work with that in the spring sports. So this is all great news. And, our food service program has been very successful. Last year we made about $21,000. And that money has to go back into the program. And you can carry it for a couple years as long as you have a plan. And what we've come across is because we're serving so much more food and we're serving so much more fresh food, we don't have enough space in the refrigerator, in the walk-in cooler. The walk-in cooler is the original one that was done back in 1990, so it's not terribly efficient, and we're starting to have to put money into it. So I'm working with Mick Musket, facility supervisor, and he's working with Energy Efficiencies of Vermont, that will be going out to bid or to get ideas about what it would cost to replace that walk-in cooler and freezer. We predict that we will probably be able to cover about 85% of that with the profits from the food service program. We will get some money from Efficiency Vermont and have to ask for very little out of the reserve fund to do that. But in order for our program to continue to grow, we really need more refrigerator space. Just with all the programs, the amount of milk we go through every day, they have to deliver milk every day, sometimes twice a day, because we don't have enough space. Luckily, we're real close to Reinhardt,
Right.
so it's not a problem, but.
It is a worthwhile endeavor.
So, and that's the biggest challenge we have right now with the program. So I'll probably be
That
sending
sounds
something out in April asking for a little
good.
more money. So,
So the numbers we've seen for the cooler and the freezer piece in the
In there.
information here lately has been just the total cost. It hasn't been that number hasn't been offset by
no.
any of the other, okay.
Right. And
All
we're
right,
just
good.
forecasting what it'll be through the end of the year, but the forecast is that, we'll be able to cover most of it. We're gonna need a little help,
Mhm.
but we have to reinvest that money in the food service
Yeah.
program, so it's a good use of money.
Absolutely.
Yep,
And the efficiency alone in the electricity will make a big difference. And we're gonna cut right now it's a 50-50 split with freezer and refrigerator, and we're gonna go to an 80-20 split, because we don't use a lot of frozen stuff anymore.
that's a good thing.
So, I think that's all positive, so
Mhm.
you'll have that coming up later on. So,
All right.
that's
The la-
it.
The last thing I wanted to add too was that this work has required a lot of collaboration, which we have really been pushing across the organization, and what we want our students to learn to be good collaborators. With Rebecca working with Suzanne Scaffelsaid for the C21 after school programming, working with Mick on the maintenance side, working with Sarah Robb, the JFK principal, on bringing breakfast into the classroom, working with Dennis Barkham to coordinate the coaches and the suppers after school and all that stuff. So for me, this also speaks to a higher level of collaboration and cooperation and communication across our organization that's starting to happen, which really, really benefits students.
Seems like it's driving directly at the heart of healthy and productive lives, that when you have enough food, you can be healthy and productive.
Taking care of the base of the hierarchy. for sure.
Exactly. This is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's a great
Thank you.
opportunity.
Oh, my goodness.
Sure.
Well, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
All right. Public comments, seeing none, we will move right along. So in the consent agenda, I would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Any other discussion?
Some great things to highlight in the consent agenda. One I wanted to highlight, can I do that in terms of discussion?
Oh, yeah.
is our policy on student conduct and discipline. I think that as we recognize that our students are at the center of what we do, is having that first paragraph really speaking to maintaining a safe and orderly and civil, positive learning environment supported by clear, consistent, restorative, and fair disciplinary practices was a wonderful conversation, and I think really moving towards the future of making sure that we are holding all of our students, making sure we need a safe environment, but that we also are going to, in here, use these opportunities as opportunities for learning for our students so that we can all grow together in a fair and restorative practice. I think at a policy level, that's the one place that we can make sure that the pipeline to prison around discipline and conduct, we can do the best we can to care for all of our kids. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that that's really well written, and I like the fact that we had a great conversation around that for the better
That
of our
was a good
kids.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed in the consent agenda the healthy, productive, successful lives, the culture of wellness within the staff, the third annual wellness day for our faculty, again mirroring what we want from our students by providing that for faculty so that it's a whole community effort in terms of caring for ourselves and having fun. That was really fun to read.
Yeah.
And a greenhouse and a garden on our campus? What? That's awesome. And again, collaboration, right? Big, huge collaboration with staff and students
And
around that.
using the output right here.
Right.
That's
Yay. That's a great celebration.
forward to seeing that
Yeah.
come through.
Okay.
Right, anything else?
No, nothing.
Okay.
I could, but I'll stop.
I had one item I did want to update, and that is and I sent this to Sean, so I don't have to worry about the wording. We can incorporate it back into the minutes later. But under the executive limitations, page 3, section 7B, asked a question last week when we were talking about the financial management questionnaire, and it's noted in the minutes as, can the board be comfortable that the activities are being met? And what I really wanted to make sure we captured in the meeting minutes is the question was, can the board be comfortable with the fact that we have sufficient cross-training to enable all roles to be covered, and that if misconduct is happening in one role with time and time off, it will be highlighted. So it was a discussion we had around, having bank tellers take, 2 weeks off to be able to see things that may be happening.
Oh, right.
So it's
Okay.
just a slightly different adjustment. I think the rest of it was okay as far as Sean's explanation of cross-training folks and
Right.
doing other things hit it. But I wanted to make sure the question was in there as was intended, so that
You're going to put that in?
yeah, I
got
sent
it.
it. I
Yep.
sent it already, so we can incorporate it back in. All right.
Okay.
So with that one adjustment to the minutes in section 7B, I would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved?
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, aye. Opposed? Okay. And then with the adjustment that we made at the beginning, we will move section 8 executive limitations up to do 2 items, and that was the add of approving a long-term sub. Sean, you have some details for us with that? Okay, and then we can turn to the vendor work for the partition walls, as noted. So we'll do the long-term sub first.
On number 7?
This is what'll end up being number 7. We just moved 8 up. The governance executive limitations piece up above governance processes.
So what you have in front of you is a nomination for a long-term sub for middle school teacher. Melissa Richard going out on maternity leave. And so we have Judith Lawson, who is a very experienced teacher. And the hiring process was run by Kate Groden, assistant principal in the middle high school. And looking at a number of candidates, three to four finalists, I believe, with the final selection being Judith Lawson. So we ask that you approve this nomination so that Judith will be available to us as soon as Melissa goes out, which she is raring to go at the moment, any second.
And what's Melissa's last name?
Richard.
Oh, yeah, she's.
The annual salary, I hadn't seen this in this form in the per diem. Is that the weekly
That's a per day.
per day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because she has a master's and with all the experience that she has, she's higher
Okay.
on the schedule.
Okay.
And we did not put the dates, the position begins on or around because it's dependent upon when
okay.
Melissa decides to go out.
Okay. And at this point, the normal maternity leave rules work in that. Okay. So that was
Right.
the best way to show the salary.
Yeah,
piece.
and we've already had Judith in to work with Melissa to do some shadow days to transition, get to know the kids and everything, so she's just waiting in the wings.
Okay. All right. I would accept a motion to accept the teacher nomination as presented.
So moved?
Any other discussion, questions,
Yeah, I'm
comments?
confused about that, but I'll ask them later.
About what?
Nothing, I'll ask it later.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. And then, whoop,
If you want it.
the vendor for the operable partition walls. We
Yes.
saw this in the bid summary for Peterson Consulting, so I don't know if you want to
Right, yeah, I'm
take the
gonna
lead.
invite Rebecca up to the table with us. She's been leading this work, and I'll just tee it up with the documents that were in the agenda packet. You had the bid summary, which was written by Eric Lafayette at Peterson Consulting, who also helped us with the project management of the preschool a few years ago. And then on the second page, you have the bid itself, the two bidders, and then the items on the left there, and the bid amounts from the two organizations. And then the third one is a summary of the project itself and the breakdown of expenses associated with it. And then on the last page, you have the request for bid waiver, which we're required to ask for when you get less than 3 bids. But we followed all the proper bidding processes. But we got 2 bids, which we actually thought were good bids, but it didn't meet the requirement of the 3. So what I would also add to this is, this is being done to.
Sorry about that. I thought I had turned that off. My apologies. I did turn it off. I did
That's on
turn
the
it off.
record.
Pull Rainbow up.
Oh.
Shut this right
Oh.
down, sorry.
This is being done in the high school on the 2nd floor, and it's be done for the purpose of creating more flexible spaces with the coming of the house model. Also, what you're going to hear this spring is that the house model is going to be ramped on in a more incremental model than we've been talking about in the past. So we're not completely pulling the cord and going to the absolute 100% personalized model next school year. There's been a lot of input from students. There's been feedback through kind of the microcosm, which is the math lab. And there also has been a lot of work done by the middle high school leadership team, and upon reflection say it's smart for us to take a little bit different approach. The goal is still the same, but we're going to slow it down a little bit. This is still really important to do. It also gives high school students and teachers and leadership another year to kind of work with the space being in its in the state that we want it to be, and prepare for the implementation of the house model. So I guess I'd open up to you guys for questions about the project itself, and Rebecca and I can do our best to answer those.
Mike's chomping at the bit.
I do have one, and I'm just, it's a curiosity. So, seen enough of these now to understand the add of a 10% contingency, to understand that, it will happen. The building's not new. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be doing the work. But under other expenses, there's electrical, flooring, furnishing, and fixtures. Why wouldn't that have been part of the base bid?
Because we didn't ask them to do the work for that, they're not those aren't the type of things that we would ask the company to do. The flooring is in one of the rooms, we're taking a wall down, so there's probably gonna be some tiling that's gonna need to be done. Our staff can do that. We have the tile in stock, but we're gonna need, a few things. There will be some electrical wiring for smart boards, because they'll have to be put in different places. So that's not something that we would necessarily ask one of these companies to do, because they don't have the manpower to do it. We'll use people that we have had done these things in the past.
Okay.
Kind of let them do what they do best.
Okay, and the 5,000 estimate for each is such that we don't have to bring that to bid?
No, because it won't be, it'll probably be, maybe we have to buy, some co-base, or we might have to buy, some materials for our staff to do it.
Okay.
It's
okay.
nothing that we're gonna contract out, except for some of the electrical, but the electrical work won't be any more than probably $1,500 of that, and we have an electrician that we have a
Okay.
contract with that we do work with.
So you're getting, it's more materials and we're supplying the labor and the.
Yeah, and it's, little
Expertise.
things going around.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any other questions?
No?
I think the other important piece to add to the broader context of reserve account, we have close to
560,000.
560,000. We will be coming to, we, like Rebecca mentioned earlier, the walk-in cooler. There could be a couple of other expenses that we may be coming to you in April or May for to work on over the summer, such as
Maybe some revamping of bathrooms, new partitions in bathrooms, or things of that. Nothing terribly major or mechanical at this point. So we feel comfortable being able to take this money out and not put ourselves in a bad situation.
But this is the significant one that we needed to get ahead of, because it required some engineering study and getting the bid out in
Ordering.
time, so we can be ready to really get the project going if you approve it when school ends.
Any other questions? Thoughts?
No, they've been clear up front with the house model. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so I would accept a motion to approve the vendor for the operable partition walls as noted. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Should we put the name of the vendor in the minutes?
it's in the meeting packet, I mean, we can. Yeah.
I meant in your motion.
Oh,
We're just approving the funds,
Okay.
the moving of the funds, right?
process has been followed.
Yeah, we had everything right in line. I got the waiver within 24 hours, so.
Interesting, just a comment on the waiver, put it out to bid and only got 2 bids, you need 3, otherwise you need a waiver, so you gotta go back for a waiver even though you didn't get the 3 bids. so.
Anything over $15,000 is part of the Vermont state bid law, so as long as you've followed the steps, we don't have a hard time getting the waivers.
All right. Okay, good, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for moving me up.
Oh, no
Yeah.
problem at all, no
I'll
problem
see
at
some
all.
of you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Right, Rebecca?
Night. All right, on to what was item 7, governance processes, student report to the board. You're on, good evening.
Right. So today we had a half day for middle and high school, not for elementary. Also, there was a snow day on February 16th, which was super nice, and then a delayed start on March 2nd, which was also nice. Could have been a little more, but I'll accept it. As mentioned on the superintendent's board report and also on our last student report, middle schoolers Yatrika Damala, Ekalu, and Dollarmu represented Winooski on February 18th at the State House. They talked about the importance of active after-school programs and the great impact it has had on them. They said they met 2 representatives and a senator, got a tour of the State House, and made it onto the news. They had a lot of fun, so congrats to them for the great job.
Awesome.
A lip sync battle was announced at the last high school community meeting, which was on the 19th. If you don't know what that is, there's been this really famous TV show with LL Cool J, where celebrities will have a lip sync battle where they'll pretend to sing songs, and whoever does the better job wins. And Jessica Bruce called out Shannon Bundy in front of the entire school, and so saying that the students were excited was a very gross understatement. So we are very excited to see this happen.
Art versus science.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
Oh man.
There should be no competition. We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna be great. I'm so excited. Anyways, the elementary's Mary Poppins play occurred last Thursday and Friday, which is March 3rd and 4th. They put on a wonderful and adorable performance. On March 7th, the Spring Effective Communications class has begun mentoring kindergarten students. Every week, high school students will be mentoring kids in Miss Perrott, Miss Bryan's, and Miss Bushy's class. And the kids are loving the time that they can spend with their new, older friends. Also mentioned on the superintendent's report, Rainbow Chen and Tatum McBride went to Montpelier on March 7th with Courtney Parquette to present on their experience with personal finance and the importance of financial literacy in the high school to the Financial Literacy Commission of the state. It was a very interesting meeting where they got to meet a lot of interesting people, including the state treasurer, and people were very impressed with their confidence and power voices. Also previously mentioned, high school junior Pascal Siki was interviewed on his work with getting student CCTA bus passes for Winooski students on March 7th. The annual student versus faculty basketball game happened last night.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
How'd it go?
went
Awesome.
very well.
Students won, I
Students
see.
won.
Yay! Well
Overtime.
done.
Yeah, it went overtime.
I
58.
couldn't be there. I think that's,
Oh,
I
yeah?
would have brought him over the top.
Uh-huh.
Right. I don't think so. I watched it.
You've seen me play.
Was
huh?
it good?
It was a great game. It was
That's
very
so
exciting.
fun.
Yeah, I heard it was awesome. So, auditions for the second annual Winooski's Got Talent show are quickly approaching. In fact, 2 of them have passed. Auditions occurred on March 7th and 8th, and then the last audition will be on the 12th at 12 p.m. The talent show takes place on April 8th in the PAC. And to raise excitement in the high school, Mrs. Getz announced the talent show during the February 19th community meeting, since last year the high school involvement was not at its potential. The annual JFK Fun Fair will be taking place on March 18th at 5 p.m. at the school. It is a fun family event for students and family as well, and always brings a smile to everyone's faces.
Okay, so my turn. I'll take the microphone now. No, I'm kidding. I speak loud enough. Updates for the New York City trip. The high school group of students that have been fundraising and preparing to go to New York City are finally finalizing things, and we're getting ready to go on April 5th and 6th with Courtney Puckett and Lucas Dunn. So there are a lot of fun things planned. We'll be leaving at 4 a.m. at the airport, and on Tuesday, April 5th, and then we'll be arriving at midnight on April 6th, so we have long 2 days ahead of us. As mentioned on the superintendent's board report, Winooski High School's personal finance takes on the Vermont Treasurers Cup on March 11th in Montpelier. What this is kind of like a Scholars Bowl competitive trivia type of competition where there'll be 10 high schools from all over Vermont competing to see how well each school knows their financial literacy. And so we had a practice round today, and we're going to win some kind of prize on Friday. Winners win $500 each, and a trophy, and also a trip to New York City. So second and third place also get trophies and the smaller prizes as well. So everybody's a winner. Prom updates. Although information isn't officially set to release until our next community meeting, we're going to have a Roaring Twenties theme. It's going to be held at the St. Albans Museum Bliss Room, and it's a very nice ballroom-style place. And we're going to have a super cool deal for pre-prom season tickets. Between April 1st and April 16th, tickets will only be $15 for singles and $25 for couples. After that, prices will increase, so tickets are bought by Karen Green at this time, and the prom committee is super excited for prom. As for music updates, The Vermont Youth Orchestra, in which I'm involved in, will be having a matinee concert at the Flynn on March 17th, alongside the Vermont Symphony Orchestra as part of Carnegie Hall's Link Up program. Basically, what we'll be doing, we'll be performing with elementary students from all over the state. So all the students will come to the Flynn with recorders in their hands, their voices prepped and ready, and so they can sing and play alongside with us. So that's going to be interesting. Also, Keen Yun, a junior, will be representing Winooski High School by himself, and will be heading to Guilford, New Hampshire to prep and perform at the New England Music Festival as a bass singer, among other amazing choral singers around New England. And also, the middle high school has a concert on March 16 at 7 p.m. here in the PAC, featuring the orchestra, chorus, and band. As for sports, we have winter sports season is officially over, and so we're getting ready for spring season. Both of our basketball teams did an excellent job this year. Our boys finished with a record of 14-6, and our girls with a final record of 10-10. Two high school boys, Sean Callahan and Jabril Abdullahi, and one high school girl, Nikki Dang, were picked to play in the All-Star game. And so the teams are North versus South. Their game is this Saturday in Windsor. The boys' game starts at 1 and the girls' game starts at 4. So please cheer them on if you'd like to. Varsity track and field just had their first team meeting on March 3rd, so there's a lot of excitement for this season. Laura and Dave Kuchar advertised during the February 19th community meeting that track is not exactly entirely based off of running and that there are many more things to do. And the coaches are very flexible in scheduling and practices, so this allows students with jobs or a lot of homework to have an easier time with sports, and so there's a lot of excitement for track, and hopefully we're going to have a pretty large track team this year. Softball and baseball signups are starting, and so the season will be starting shortly. We also have two high school students, Sean Callahan and LaDonya Taylor, have joined the Vermont Commons Ultimate Frisbee team. Partnering with Vermont Commons can open up more connections for some dying sports in our school, and can create opportunities for transportation between schools and space for practice. So we're hopefully going to develop a relationship with Vermont Commons and hopefully other neighboring schools for these sports.
Great.
And for State Board of Education, to kind of wrap everything up, February 16th was my last meeting, which was during the awful snow day with awful weather. We approved of another merger proposal, and we had a discussion about a legislature update, and some discussion over why some students aren't performing as well as they can, especially those living in poverty, in comparison to their middle-class counterparts in more richer districts. And then there was some discussion about equity versus equality in some school districts, and Winooski was referenced, which was pretty cool. I also said some stuff about how students aren't given equal opportunities, and students aren't necessarily given the opportunities because they can't afford it, they don't have the skills for it, and also the fact that sometimes failing schools just need to be given that push ahead so that they can also be given the funds to support those students that are in need. As for the January meeting update, since I missed that last time, we approved of 3 merger proposals, and we got to learn about the 2 biggest private institutes in the state of Vermont, St. Johnsbury and Burn Academy. So all this is interesting. We have another meeting coming up next Tuesday, and all of this information you can also find in our 6-hour video recordings on RETN. So, yeah.
You mentioned your last meeting, or was that just the previous meeting? How long was your term? 1 year?
My term is 2 years.
2 years, okay. That's what I thought.
I'm non-voting this year, and I'm voting member next year. So that's exciting. I don't get to say aye yet, but soon.
There you go. Nice.
And that's it for us.
Great. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next item here then is discussion and possible action on an Act 46 item. Sean?
So, as noted in my report, things have shifted a bit since the last conversation that the board had, which, if you remember, we had asked for your permission to gather South Burlington, Colchester, and Winooski superintendents together to talk about opportunities for expanding learning opportunities and finding some operational efficiencies. So I met with the other superintendents, and we had another superintendent who has been facilitating some of these merger conversations. And in the end, the conversation turned to that it made more sense based on the needs that were expressed around the table and the positions that each individual district was in for Colchester and Winooski to move forward together while keeping South Burlington and Burlington connected to the conversation. And one of the primary reasons for that decision was, or suggested decision for the boards to really act on, was that there's money on the table in terms of tax cuts. 4 years of tax cuts, starting with 8 cents and then 6 cents and 4 cents and 2 cents in the first 4 years of operation of a conventional merger. So, and it was agreed around the table amongst the superintendents that it appeared anyway that there was a better match between the two districts when you look at some of the metrics that we had gathered, like configurations of schools, like current tax rates, demographics, and so forth. So I'm giving you that recommendation in that context, along with this is some more materials on what that could look like. Really, we would be looking at a conventional merger, which is outlined on here. And the way that would work to move forward, if the board decides that that's how they would like to move forward, would be to start an official study committee and petition the Agency of Ed, who has allotted monies for these study committees, and they could award up to $20,000 for the study committee. And then hire a facilitator who would help the boards, the superintendents, to develop a committee composition of different stakeholders from the two towns, and then it would be the work of the committee to meet and study and develop some sort of proposal and/or options to both boards to consider. The other option, as outlined in the fall, when Nicole Mace came to visit, is to not do any of this, and it is to kind of do our own study and respond to the State Board of Education of why we would like to remain in the current configuration in the single district that we are. And so that is I'm teeing up, this is a board discussion, and at some point a decision would need to be made about one of those options, because we do have to have a response to the State Board of Ed at some point. I think the deadline is July 2017 that we would have to respond.
Respond to
As to where
the
our
request,
intention to going.
because we are being requested to consider this based on our numbers.
We have to respond because we don't meet the 900 student
To
threshold.
the number, okay,
Right.
okay.
And that response can be anything from we will merge with another district somehow, to we're going to seek a waiver and stay the way we are.
Okay.
And anything that we can come up with in between.
And if you study,
makes
it
sense.
doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to merge.
And that was my second question. So when you were speaking to there being a grant to engage in a study, it sounds like the study would be between just Winooski and Colchester, with keeping South Burlington and Burlington in the loop?
Yes, and the recommendation was to have somebody from each one of those districts as part of the committee.
Oh, okay.
Maybe more in an advisory than in a voting role, and that
Okay.
would be, we need help from the facilitator on how to make up the composition of the committee.
I guess my question would be, why would we not enter into a study, considering that we need to respond to this request by 2017? Is there any limitations in moving forward with the study itself? Because we're not obligated to make any decisions or to go with the recommendations of the study, but we would get more information about what it would look like for our school, opportunities for kids, cost or savings for our taxpayers, we would get all that information and be able to make a decision based on that information.
Right, I think one of the things that I've been pondering, Sean and I had talked about this in our prep meeting. Just going straight forward and asking for a waiver without doing anything is interesting, but I think it forgoes some of the things that we can learn if we do the study.
I think one of the reasons we were thinking just the waiver is because we've recently done a study with Burlington, correct?
Yeah.
Right. One of the
So I think
outcomes of
that was one
that.
of the biggest things.
Yep, and one of the outcomes of that was that, and one of the takeaways that dissuaded us from moving forward with that was the differential in the tax rate, for one, and a lack of ability to show any concrete savings from doing any kind of accommodation. So we really didn't come up with anything from that perspective.
I'm surprised really that Colchester would be the one. I don't see any similarities between Winooski School District and Colchester at all. Can you share any of that?
And maybe that's why it's a good match.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I mean, I think that's what
I think it's
I
worth
think that's
doing the
what
study
stu- I
because
think that's what
now
the
you're
study's
intriguing
for.
me to
Right.
think, okay, how would this work? And just knowing what I've had the privilege of doing some work in the Colchester School District before. And so just knowing the different school systems, the demographics, which is huge, and like huge, Colchester's huge.
Geographically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so.
It's smaller than both Burlington and South Burlington in terms of number of students.
Right, but they have more schools too than we do.
They do.
You know what I'm saying? Because they have their elementaries, and then
Right.
they have their one middle, their one 3 through
K2,
5.
3, 5, yeah, 3, 5. They have 2 K2s, a 3,
3,
5,
5,
and then
a middle, and a high school.
And they have been also studying and talking about selling their elementaries, and they have land on the main campus there by the high school towards Bayside, and building a new building there that would be a pre-K 1 building, and then
Interesting.
moving
To the
making it
2-5.
2-5 and then 6-8, so they'd have the entire campus right there. So that, that's something that they've been working on.
I think it's worth doing. It's definitely intriguing to see what benefits we can have towards them and what benefits, like putting the two communities together, how that looks and how that would be interesting.
And how you actually could benefit our students from doing
absolutely.
it, and the taxpayers.
Without
There's gotta
burdening
be-
the taxpayers.
I am less interested in the 4 years of reduced tax rates. I mean, that's interesting, it's nice, it's incentive. But really, if you start thinking about the longer term piece of that, you've got to have the stability over time, you've got to have the plan that goes through time, you've got to have, a good forward moving. So the tax rate is nice, it's incentive up front, but we got to make sure that it's something that long term really makes sense as well. So, I think initially I was just go for the waiver and go with what we got. But I think it would be good if we've got the money to do the study, like I think is pretty much the consensus. The money is available to do the study. We might as well move forward, get some data, get some details.
Yeah, I mean, we are right on the line.
Knowledge is power.
It could
Yeah.
We just need
supply
to figure out, how it.
information
yeah.
that if we don't end up doing anything with a merger, we hopefully end up stronger out of the other end.
Exactly.
We would base that decision based on the fact that, does it increase opportunities for kids? Does it help our tax, how does this benefit Winooski and our kids and our community?
And it's possible that something short of a full merger we can find to help the students as well,
Right.
educationally.
Yep.
Yeah.
There could be something in there that's just short. All right, so here I think what we're looking for then is the approval to move forward and get into the study
Yeah.
piece and petition the state.
Right. Right, and
Yeah.
I would communicate with Colchester to have them do the same thing, and we would make that request jointly.
Okay. So.
So do we make a motion to initiate the study, or do you?
Yep.
Okay.
you wanna formulate
I move that we approve initiating a consolidation study committee to gather information about
Conventional
a
merger
conventional merger
with Colchester.
with Colchester School District.
Okay,
And keeping South Burlington and Burlington in the loop.
can you do that again?
Are you kidding? I'm just kidding. I move that we convene a committee to study a voluntary merger of the conventional merger with the Colchester School District.
Perfect, nailed it. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? All right. Very good. To, going now.
So
Go ahead.
I wouldn't mind sitting in part of some of those meetings, if that's possible.
That's-
Well, there will be
Where
board
I was-
membership on the study committee.
Yeah.
That's where I was going.
Because
There's
I would
another committee that we
Absolutely
would be
love
looking
to
to.
be part of that committee.
Yep. And that's, like, that was one of the things I was referencing when I mentioned earlier, that maybe other committees that come
Yes,
up as we go
exactly.
along, right? So.
I was reading
I mean,
that.
I don't want to step
Yeah.
on toes, so if someone else wants to do it,
Oh, no.
that's fine. But
And when the
that is
time
something
comes,
that
there's
is
nothing to
very
say we can't
intriguing
have
to
two,
me.
probably,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
depending on how we want to lay it out.
Yep.
We can do that. All right,
Great.
Excellent.
great. Okay, moving on then, 7B, first reading, policy 5114C, weapons.
So, I had a conversation with a policy specialist at the VSBA recently because I was curious about why their model policy is only firearms.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
Yes, this is very
And
clear.
so
It's like, wait,
the
what?
the response was, they put in their required, really the bare minimum to meet federal and state requirements, okay? So, in order to meet federal and state requirements, you don't have to have a broader weapons, you have to have just firearms because of the Gun-Free Schools Act, okay? So, she told me also that some boards have covered the beyond firearms through their student conduct and discipline policy, which you just approved tonight. There is language in your policy already about that. It's not as specific as in the weapons policy, but it does reference and it gives a definition of weapons. My recommendation to you is that both in policy and in practicality so far, my experience with the current policy is that it works well. And having the broader language around weapons opposed to the more narrow of just firearms, and given the language of the student conduct and discipline policy right now, that having a policy on weapons opposed to firearms is a better way to go.
Excellent. That's what I read in
I'd
the
say
whole
based
thing.
on
Yes.
experience, that would be true.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah. And
All right.
the only other recommendations, I think that we could borrow some of the language from the VSBA model in the policy paragraph to clean up our first paragraph a little bit.
Mhm.
But other than that, there was one more thing. If you look in your policy on page 2, down under the first line under firearm and consequences and discipline, you'll notice that it says any student who brings up or possesses a firearm at school shall be brought. Okay, so there's no questions. So anytime there would be any type of a firearm, that would come to the board for a hearing. If you go down to knife and other devices, you'll see, and it's a may.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But then if you go down for 3 or 4 minutes, fourth line, well, if you start in the third line, it says a student found by the board after hearing to have brought or possessed a knife or other device to or at school shall be suspended for more than 10 school days up to a maximum period of time of the remainder of the school year, or up to 90 days. My question is whether or not you would want to keep that at shall or may. May obviously gives you a little more flexibility around determining the length of a suspension.
There's no intent comment in that either, right? I mean, the intent piece to me seems
It comes
to-
later with the mitigating
With the 1, 2,
circumstances.
3, and 4.
And does that cover the difference between shall and may? Because I think there have been several cases that there's no intent. If there is no intent, and there is no, or little acknowledgement that it's, even there, do you suspend, this would say that you'd suspend them for 10 days, even for the night,
Right.
right?
Right.
I feel like the 4 points of consider mitigating circumstances, it's sort of implicit in those 4 things, but I think being clear around may and allowing for the flexibility in that sentence, the school shall suspend students for more than 10 days. I think to honor the 4 different mitigating circumstances, I think we do need to have that word be may, because we just want to make sure there's as much flexibility for
Keeping them in school.
keeping them in school, but also around different kinds of circumstances, that it's not being spoken to as this will happen based on this. We want to make sure that the best judgment after inspection and investigation, that we are meeting the kids where they are and our safe school system where we are. So that gives us some flexibility.
Jen?
So there is flexibility in if it's brought to the board, because it does say may, under circumstances, modify the expulsion on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we really want to take out shall when you really don't want this to happen. So you do want there to be a consequence for it happening, regardless.
Certainly, but at least with may, you get to determine that consequence based on the circumstances and on the other language within this policy. So you're right. So the decisions by the board shall be made on a case-to-case basis.
No, it says may. There is one in here that says may.
The first one that said the school may be
Modify
brought
the expulsion.
may be brought to the board, and then if you're found to have it, you shall be suspended for more than 10 days,
And then
which
it
is a
says-
directive. But then it says the decisions by the board shall be made on a case-to-case basis, which gives you the flexibility there. And then the last sentence, which is considering mitigating circumstances, that provides some more flexibility around intent, awareness, disability, and being an ongoing threat. It would just seem like changing that word shall would keep it in the line of clear flexibility on case-by-case basis, mitigating circumstances.
Otherwise, it sounds like it would be a 10-day suspension,
Right.
and then a
Shall
meeting
for
with the
more
board
than
to
10
see
days.
if there's anything beyond that.
Yeah. And I think it was
Yeah,
the
it
same-
actually has to be more than 10.
more than 10 days. Shall be suspended for more than 10 days. That seems like a pretty clear directive. Sandwiched
think-
between a lot of possibilities, or.
Right, but I think if it is in fact a dangerous situation, then I think taking the action of the suspension of a longer term would be immediate. If it's more, if based on the four items, there was intent, there was,
And it's an ongoing threat?
and it's something that.
But you have to
Yeah. Have that
investigate
option.
that
Exactly.
before you
Right.
can determine
Yeah.
that.
Correct.
So there should be
Right.
some form of expulsion, and there shall be some form of expulsion regardless, because it has to be investigated. You can't just make that determination in one single day
Right,
without
and that's
all the
why the
information.
due process steps are in place. There's the administrative investigation,
Right.
and then the recommendation to the board, and then the board's decision about what to do.
But it may be that the investigation takes a day to complete, or 2 days to complete, but this would say that you have to suspend them for 10 days, for more than 10 days.
Right, and administratively, we can put a student out for up to 10 days without coming to the board. But anything after that has to come to the board for a student hearing and due process.
The firearm, I have no problem with that, being a
Right.
shall, but
It would seem like changing the word shall to may in the firearm, that first sentence in the firearm piece. Any students who brings or possesses a firearm at school shall be brought by the superintendent to the school board for an expulsion hearing. may be brought once the investigation and the case-by-case basis and considering the mitigating circumstances.
Because that's for a
Right.
year.
Right, so that shall should be a may, and then the one down here around shall be suspended for more than 10 days should
Under
be a
the
may.
knife.
Under knives and other devices. Just to keep the language consistent, that it's gonna be a case-by-case basis. We're gonna consider mitigating circumstances.
So you want to put the shall to be, any student who brings possesses a firearm to a school, you want it to be may be brought by the principals?
Mhm.
Yeah, see, I disagree. I think that
I
should be
think in the
shall.
firearm, I think that'll be shall. I think that's where at the
So-
firearm shall, but I think under the knife and
Okay.
other devices,
So
maybe.
even
should
considering
be.
mitigating circumstances, the last of it, just to clarify. Okay, so they would come for an expulsion hearing just by having it in this building. And
Yes.
then, on a case-to-case basis, with mitigating circumstances, then the expulsion is determined based on that.
right.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I think with the firearm, it is thou shalt
Thou
be
shalt.
expelled,
Okay.
period. We
Period.
may, after board consideration and facts gathering,
Okay,
adjust it.
yeah,
Right.
With the knife and other devices, you may be suspended depending on a situation,
right,
and it could be over 10 days.
Okay.
Probably what'll happen is at least the day of, and maybe the day after while the investigation happens. I think that's part of what we've seen.
okay.
And then if it is serious and there is intent and it does go over 10 days, it has to be brought to us.
Okay.
It shall be brought to us.
Okay.
So I think the firearm, I think there can be no.
Great, so we keep the shall with firearm. And do what about the shall be suspended for more than 10 days?
I think that would be may.
May,
Is that-
okay.
That
That's what I was.
work and
yeah.
hit the intent
Okay.
a little bit cleaner. Okay. I had one, and it shows up actually in two places. Under the firearm, where it has the mitigating circumstances listed to 4 of them, and under the knives, it's the same 4 mitigating circumstances. I can't get my head wrapped around 3. So it says the board in determining the length of any expulsion may consider mitigating circumstances, including but not limited to the following. And 3 is, the student has a disability and a misconduct is directly related to the disability.
Yeah.
So there's a step in the special education process called a manifestation determination, and that would be done before a board hearing. And what happens with that is the IEP team gathers, and there are a couple of questions that get asked to determine whether or not the violation of school rules was directly connected to the student's disability.
Which has happened.
If
Okay.
if it is, then that gives you the ability to kind of invoke these mitigating circumstances. If it's not, so it does match the language that comes out of with the manifestation determination. It has to be related to the disability, because if it's not, then the student should be treated like all of their peers.
But if it's a misconduct related to the disability, and it is a danger to other students, how do those two collide? It seems like this would be a mitigating circumstances to forgive the action, because the misconduct is related to the disability.
Right.
Am I reading that wrong? But, I mean, it seems to me that that would be a reason that it wouldn't be a suspension, even though it could still be a danger.
Right, and it doesn't mean that all of the consequences go away. It means that they could, and in the eyes of the law, should be lessened because the disability exists, and it was directly related to the violation of the school rules.
I guess the piece I'm still struggling with is if it is still a danger to other students, faculty, staff.
So that
Do
what
we-
would happen with that with a student with a disability is then the IEP team convenes and looks at placement and whether or not they're in the placed properly on the least restrictive environment.
Okay, all right, Okay.
Okay, so then
Piece.
if they
Okay.
say, if the student is an
Alright.
an ongoing threat, then maybe that's not the proper placement. You also have what's called an interim alternative placement, where you can place a student with a disability in a 45-day alternative setting, so you can figure out what is the best thing to do.
Okay, all right. All right, 'cause that puts my mind more at ease than the way I was reading it originally. There are options other than just dealing with it in-house.
Right.
Again, to me, it seemed almost like an out for leaving a danger in-house, which I'm hoping that we wouldn't do.
Right, right.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then the only other thing I had under knives and other devices, there's a,
or missing?
or a slash or
Yeah.
something where it's an extended suspension, expulsion down under the knives and other devices, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that next statement after that should have a slash in it, just, or.
And then the last page, I have a commissioner change to secretary of education.
Yeah, under procedures, is that last statement astray? Parents of students who violate this policy will be notified, and said student shall be immediately removed from the school.
No?
That seemed like a real misplaced comment. Yeah, right here. I couldn't put that anywhere. I'm not sure if it's a policy. I understand the procedures in publishing it, but
Right.
the first statement is okay. The second one, the parents of students who violate this policy will be notified. Yeah, I think that's set up above, and said student shall be immediately removed from the school. Not convinced we just said that. The violations of the policy, okay, that would make it removed, because we've determined it to be a violation of the policy.
Right.
Okay. Parents being notified, I'm okay with. Okay. All right, so that's, I'm good there. Okay, anything else? Okay. Wow. Legislative updates. So that was discussion only. That'll be back in consent next time with the adjustments. And then the legislative updates, I think, are called for in the annual agenda. I think there've been very few that have really been pertinent over the last several weeks. Haven't seen much with education, from an education standpoint anyway, except they found $20 million, but
Right.
they gotta figure out what to do, what to
course
do
they
with
do.
that. So,
Okay.
all right. Anything else from a legislative update that normally we would have had Clem and Deanna, but.
Yeah, no,
but,
I haven't heard any
There's anything clearly
agenda
going on.
items or potential bills that are getting a lot of legs right now. Most recently, it's, marijuana has been the biggest topic. And I think I mentioned last time, the VSA, the Superintendent's Association, did, while not taking a clear position, we did write a letter asking a lot of questions and wanting to ensure that that all those questions were answered and research was done before taking the steps towards legalization. And really
That's
putting a
right.
focus on the impact of
Control
students.
and
Yeah.
impact. Yep, okay. All right. Community engagement. Well, the engagement I've had lately has been here. I mean, budget
Voting.
negotiations, it's been an interesting run. Any agenda items for our next go-around? We got a.
Did you want to talk about this at all?
Oh, I'm just not sure in
Or
what.
I can if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
So
Touch on it. I
at the
hadn't
annual meeting,
reviewed it.
Michael Mahoney, longtime local Winooski resident, and I believe has his own appraisal business, right? Yeah. He suggested that it would be really really good public relations for the board to meet new people who have moved in to the city. And so he, it's public information, but he's able to put together a report that shows in the past year, I mean, you can sort it however you want, but the past year, all the new sellers of property in the city and where the properties are. And so he was saying, wouldn't it be great if there was kind of the welcome into the city and there was a school component to that of saying, hey, we're really glad that you moved here, and, do you have any kids? And we got a great school here, and, introducing them to the school district.
It's an awesome idea.
So,
It really is.
so he sent me all the 2015 transactions, and it has names of the buyers, it has their addresses, and
So maybe like a community dinner for new community members.
Or even an outreach to go
Yeah.
visit.
Or we could even do the coffee thing, house thing.
yeah,
Like go by neighborhoods.
right,
Back to
So
the,
this is all 2015,
yeah.
Yeah.
new arrivals.
Yeah.
How many are there? You have to count.
100. No, it says 159.
Wow.
But that's including commercial. There's some commercial
okay.
mixed in here too.
Yeah, that would be all those new places. But still, they're community members.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
Stakeholders.
yeah. Yeah, so it may behoove us to have that discussion
Sure.
at some point as to what we might want to,
Some ideas about that?
how we could do an outreach.
School barbecue?
Well, when you
Beginning
talk
of
about
summer?
community engagement, right?
Yeah, that's what-
It's one way, and I think, we usually ask people to come to places and come into the school or whatever, but it could be a way to go out and meet people where they are.
Right.
And might be, just a different way. I was telling
Block party?
Mike Mahoney, one of the things I used to do with the principals in Chittenden South is when there was a new birth, a couple weeks later, we used to go out with like a basket, full of chocolate for mom and some books and some toys and things, and just a card that said, congratulations, and we're really excited that you're in, Chittenden South Supervisory Union, and we have great schools here, and give them some information about local health services, pre-educational services and things like that.
I'm in for that. I would totally do that.
Would this be something that, weren't we thinking about from our last retreat, that we would have these kind of discussions around brainstorming how to be more engaged with the community, like at the board meeting, of being able to sort of make a plan around it, where we've got two different things going now, which is sort of the baby welcome, and then also sort of family welcome.
homeowner.
Yeah, new homeowner welcome.
Yep.
And how would we put some structure around that to implement it?
And there's so many resources that can be put into a basket.
Yeah, and we could reach out and collaborate with the Winooski Family Center, of just getting all kinds of things that we know, like from our preschool and all the things that we feel like would be beneficial to sort of pass on
If
to
we
to
could
help them
bring
understand.
the city in too by just letting them know the nice businesses in the area, like good spots, what's what.
Yeah, I think it's something that we should entertain, having that
So
discussion
maybe that should
here
go on
and-
the agenda, because we were certainly trying to find some space for those workbook, that I have.
Right, and I had
of being
one
able to
on-
have, how do we structure those conversations at a board meeting? Because we haven't really had those work sessions yet.
Right. Well, I would argue that our community, our forums that we've had, the local.
Right,
I mean,
exactly, and
that's
it's
kind of
moving
the-
from, it is, I would think it'd be
that
the same
same
type of,
discussion.
right,
That amongst
That's-
us of how we're going to implement it.
Right.
and
Yeah.
Who's going to do it and what are we going to do?
right.
Then go out and do it
And
and
then
come
go out
back
and
and
do it, come
say,
back,
how'd it
report
work
on it.
and
Right.
what would we do different?
Yep.
Okay, we'll pop that in for a discussion in May.
It might be helpful to do some brainstorming prior to it,
Yeah. Bring ideas.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Good. All right, anything else? Thank you for that. I hadn't put it together with that discussion, sorry. Lost it. All right, next meeting, April 13th, and if there's nothing else, I would accept a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.